And now I would like to introduce Elyse. Um, Elyse Lowe is the City of San Diego's Development Services Department Director. Um, the City of San Diego has doubled its housing permit numbers in the last 3 years, and I'm not sure Elyse would take 100% of the credit for that, but at least a decent share. Uh, she has extensive experience in land use, housing, transportation, sustainability, and fiscal management. Her career spans 3 decades in public service and nonprofit leadership, including merging two 501c3s into Circulate San Diego, which is a public policy think tank. Formerly the mayor's director of land use and economic development, she has long advised on housing policy reform, and her experience on both housing policy and transportation advocacy makes her a fantastic person to lead us off today on this agenda of housing and transportation information knowledge sharing. Please join me in welcoming Elyse Lowe.
Um, I uh, I believe in full transparency, so I'm going to start off with when I got to LA last night to go walk around downtown with my brother and sister-in-law. I was really excited about the culture of downtown. It's been so long since I've walked the government district and everywhere. It was so great. And then they took me out to the best dinner. And last night I got food poisoning, sick, and I have not slept 1 hour since that happened. And I got so sick, I'm pretty sure I ripped a muscle in my stomach. So I'm gonna sit for this presentation. I hope you guys don't mind. I mean, we just gotta keep it real up in here, right? Being 50 sucks, so yeah, it does. Let's see. I was like, I could lie and pretend everything's fine. It's not. But this is what we do. Call it leadership. We're just gonna keep on kicking. I mean, you couldn't have a second keynote like bail out on you, right? That would be terrible. Oh my gosh. Well, I will look it up and tell you. Yeah. Okay. Um, so thank you for letting me be honest. Thank you for having me. I've actually had the interaction a couple times over my life with UCLA, with interactions. Previously in my nonprofit life, I did a lot with statewide policy sustainability work. The endowment would always host us, and members of UCLA would be here. So it's great. It's a fantastic organization you guys have. I've also done some transportation and housing discussions with UCLA up at Lake Arrowhead. The conference, was this conference there? Does anyone remember that one? It was great. Oh, what an amazing place. But this is fantastic too. So thank you so much. And please drink your coffee. I have not had any coffee because I was worried what would happen if I started drinking that. But I have a sense of humor, and so does life. And I'm here to be able to tell my story. So let's click. So this story is about a city that grew up on the edge of the ocean, edge of possibilities. So easy for us to hit our limits geographically, politically. We've got the US-Mexico border to the south. We've got the Pacific Ocean to the west. We've got the mountain range out to the east. And then, of course, 18 other cities in our region, as well as Camp Pendleton. So San Diego is blocked in. We're only going to be allowed to grow like in that area. We're not going to be able to spread out. So having finding a way to grow in San Diego has just been so important to me. So my story is a little bit about me, and then the work that I did to try to help the city get there. Can you guys see? Okay, I'm sorry. Is that all right? Okay. Thanks for bearing with me. So this is a story of a girl who started her career ankle deep in landfill dust, convinced that sustainability was something that you had to do, earning the title of the unglamorous work. And somehow my winding path has helped lead me to reshape a city and do that with permits, plans, and dreams. So this story is about people, it's about us, it's about the people that we serve. Everyone plays a role. Um, the beauty of all of this is I believe that you are here because you share a similar vision to what I share, which is that we must have better transportation choices associated with land uses that are supportive. It's not an easy path to get to. It takes a lot of work and understanding, and but it's not something that we should wait for. It's something that we need to create. So thanks for letting me tell the story and a little bit about me. So where did it all start? I'm a native San Diegan, coastal beach gal who thought that saltwater was a personality trait. I mean, we didn't have we never showered. We just went to the beach and just let the salt be in there. We had the original beach hair. It was so great. In high school, I decided that I was a hippie, and I was proud of it. I joined the Earth Club. I thought Earth Day should be like a national holiday. And I just was like, what am I going to do with my life? How am I going to help the world? What am I going to do? Well, I decided that the best place to go was UC Santa Cruz, because if you're going to be a tree hugger, you got to do it where the forest meets the ocean. And then you get to forest bathe as much as you want, right? So Santa Cruz was my choice. I went there, partly for the academics, but really, huh? Go Slugs. That's right. That place is a good time, let me tell you. So I'm there in Santa Cruz, environmental studies, right? That's what I decided to study, with emphasis on policy and planning. I was studying CEQA before I even really knew what it was. And I wanted to really back up the work that I was doing with some earth science. So it wasn't just policy. I wanted to try to balance that. When I graduated, I was ready to save the world, and I landed my first gig. I bet you think I'm going to say city planner, but no, got a job at the dump as a recycling specialist. Oh, sorry. I'm getting really bad at this. Here we are. You hear of meeting people where they are. Well, I met people where sustainability smelled just great. My job at the landfill at first was assessing construction and demolition debris. We wanted to create a recycling ordinance, and I actually be out there in the landfill doing the assessments, estimates, so we could figure out what the materials were that would be most likely to be recycled. Incredible opportunity, not only to identify the opportunities for waste reduction and resource conservation, but really kind of figure out, like, this is real life stuff right here. So my next task was to take on at the landfill transforming rotting yard waste into humongous piles of valuable free compost. It was a fantastic job. Now that's really where the smell came from, I'll tell you that. But it was fascinating, and what it made me understand was that the city, as an 11,000 person organization, had so many opportunities to change, opportunities to lead. And, standing around on that dusty hill one day, surrounded by bulldozers and seagulls and the unmistakable aroma of decomposing ambition, I had a revelation. If you want to create change, you've got to be able to work where the real work happens, even if it's the landfill. So when I decided to move on, and I decided to pivot my career into financial management at the city, because I found out every single department director had started their careers in the financial management department. So that's where I needed to go. So I went there, a decision, driven more by this strategic opportunity rather than a love of spreadsheets. I was bored to tears. It was terrible. I literally sat in that cube for 2 years straight, but I got to work on great departments like the Community Economic Development Department and the redevelopment agencies, the ones that were really out there funding, making change happen in communities. The job also taught me where all the fiscal bodies are buried and how the sausage gets made. So spoiler alert, it's pretty messy. All right, so it also taught me I wanted more. There, I started to shape a vision for what I wanted to see in San Diego: smarter growth, thriving neighborhoods, positive environmental impacts like greenhouse gas reductions that didn't just sound good, but that actually worked for people. So I was determined to learn more about how to improve community. I wanted to see changes where dilapidated businesses with broken windows, get rid of the broken window effect and, 3 foot tall weeds and turn them into walkable urban destinations. So my big leap, I first ended up meeting a local council member who shared my vision, and he offered me a job as a community representative. So I went to the dark side and worked for him. At the time, the city was updating our general plan, and it had been years. And so I was able to work on his behalf to influence the general plan. So City of Villages, anyone heard of that for San Diego, right? So huge opportunity to do more there. I spent 6 years doing deep community work. When I say deep community work, I mean going to community meetings in the field, probably like twice a week for every month for 6 years. It was a lot. But the municipal policy development that I gained from that opportunity was incredible. I had a community that was mid-city, lower income, and I learned how the improvements in that area get funded, typically from development impact fees and new development. And then my other community was Tierra Santa, which was actually they say it Tierra Santa. It was a bedroom community, mostly funded by FBA, Facilities Benefits Assessment. And so they were just polar opposites. But it really gave me this great perspective on what it takes to make change happen in different types of communities. City was great, but I wanted more. So I wanted to make change. I took a career risk and I jumped out of government into a small startup advocacy nonprofit called Move San Diego. There wasn't much there. A board of directors, and they had created a mission statement, and there was some money in the bank, but I was the sole employee. There was no office, there was no interns. They basically handed me a mission statement and said, okay, can you do something with this? I was like, well, at least I didn't have to write the mission statement. That's great, because that takes forever. So it turns out it was the right decision. It was what I like to call my fast lane moment. Suddenly, I, as a leader, the executive director of Move San Diego, I got invited to help draft the city's first climate action plan, mobility element. And there, I was able to advocate for land use with mobility hubs, transit-oriented development, reduce greenhouse gas emissions. I was with like-minded people, and we were starting a movement, a pro-TOD movement. We pushed for complete streets before it was cool. We challenged decade-old regional assumptions. We ran new transportation models at the regional level to show that buses in bus-only lanes could work really well in San Diego. We pushed really hard. We actually worked to reshuffle the transportation funding timelines that had been previously treated like the 10 Commandments. No, we're always going to do freeways first. No, we should not do that. We should do our supportive bike lanes with mobility hubs, and then do the freeways later. Because if you build it, they will come. So here's the strange twist: is that later I ended up running the very department that was permitting the bicycle lanes. So that was kind of crazy because that wasn't in my playbook, but it happened. So life is basically one big plot twist if you let it be and if you stick around long enough. So I was running Move San Diego, building powerful coalitions of strange bedfellows. I mean, our nonprofit worked. We could do things because we had politically savvy businessmen. We had very, very smart, prominent environmentalists. And then we had developers and other folks who wanted to make change to really push for more of a transit-forward agenda. I even got to collaborate with, let's see how old anybody is here, the famous Denny Zane of Move LA. Anyone know Denny Zane? Yeah, so we did some statewide work together, and he was a hoot. During my time at Move, I realized that our organization needed to grow. It was, as a nonprofit, I needed to create a business model that wasn't always like, hey, give me money and I'll advocate. We had to really find ways to build the business. And so I ended up doing a nonprofit merger with Walk San Diego. And they were a pedestrian advocacy organization, but they had a business model where they would go do planning services. And so in one fell swoop, I was able to grow my nonprofit from 1 employee, 2 interns, to 16 employees. And we definitely became even more of a powerhouse. We ended up merging and we created Circulate San Diego. And Circulate San Diego now operates, it really was sort of modeled after Spur in San Francisco in the Bay Area. But a lot of policy work happening there on the housing front and transportation front. We did it with the model where we wanted to not point fingers and shame politicians for decisions, but really to try to build them up and pour a little sugar on the decisions they were doing and try to change the narrative and get people to understand that like we have to grow differently and that we can be supportive of it. So while I was implementing a TOD project review and endorsement program that I created, because you also got to pay the bills, that program was aimed at changing the narrative to good growth and development to create more YIMBYs to mitigate the NIMBYs. And while that happened, another lesson crystallized. Developers don't need cheerleaders. Well, they do need cheerleaders, but they don't only need cheerleaders. They need a city that works. The infill developers that I worked with on transit-oriented development projects were constantly complaining about the city process, the time that it took, the rules, and that became my next calling. I decided I wanted to go figure out where the rubber meets the road so that we can build more housing in our neighborhoods. And so I returned back to the city to fix the inside. I'm really doing terrible at this whole slide thing. Here we go. Returned to the city determined to fix what I had seen from every angle: the process, the system, the gears that turn ideas into buildings and buildings into communities, literally where the rubber meets the road. Fast forward a couple years later, many years later, 2 mayoral administrations and 3 job titles later, I now serve as the Director of Development Services. I run what is essentially a $170 million nonprofit within the city government. I run a business. The permitting department's a business. We're the building department, the code enforcement, the cannabis permitters. We hold all the legislative hearings for the Planning Commission and Historic Resources Board. We're a one-stop shop. And I think that's what makes us a little bit different than LA, is that we are consolidated and everything's in, versus LA has a different model. I believe there's some push for change, the building department to become more of a one-stop shop. But yeah, we are such a big entity that we didn't slow down during COVID. We didn't close. We might have closed the lobby, but everybody kept working. Because if we're not working, then the economic development in the city is not happening. You know, and it's funny to be the leader of the organization where I'm not a structural engineer, I'm not a civil engineer, but I do have a North Star. And my North Star is remove obstacles, uphold safety, and help San Diego grow with purpose. So what we changed and why it worked. What was our positive changes that we did? Well, we aligned our plans, our programs, our policies, our process, and our permits, so they're finally going the same direction. San Diego has updated 18 of its community plans out of 52 in the last 10 years, and updating land uses to be able to create about 150,000 units of capacity in those land use plans. When you update the plan and you create the capacity, you can drive more ministerial development, less projects going to public hearings, and you could get the housing in faster. So we reduced the process. We made sure that we had fewer projects going to city council. We actually had the council vote on that so that we could do a lot more staff approvals. And then the big thing that San Diego did, we enhanced our density bonus program well beyond what the state required. In fact, we set the bar, and state legislation was modeled after San Diego because we went further with unlimited density bonus for affordable housing. We created another incentive program called Complete Communities to remove barriers to infill housing. It's designed for co-location of housing near jobs, transit, and schools. You have to be in a transit priority area. You have to provide a minimum of 40% of the pre-density bonus units as deed restricted units. And you have to replace any equivalently sized affordable units. And then you have to pay a neighborhood enhancement fee of about $10 a square foot of your whole building, or put in a large 20-foot wide public promenade to enhance walkability. So Communities has been delivering a lot of homes near high-performing transit. You can see here that from a one-story home, 5 floors to 19 homes, that's on a 3,500 square foot lot. So what San Diego has enabled is quite remarkable. And this is what's helping to lend towards our housing increase. Complete communities, not all the neighbors love it because the density is governed by a new floor area ratio and height governed by a FAR, not the zone, except for in coastal. I'm really proud of our program called Permit Now, where it was a fast lane. It is a fast lane for affordable housing. So dedicated staff who do nothing but review the permits. We turn them around. We say 30 days. We turn around the time frame in like 9 days or less. The consultants working on the projects can't actually keep up with our staff returning the things so quickly. So we have to hold developers' hands to make sure that they can really participate in this project how we want them to. But they have been able to, we've been able to run over 6,000 units through this process. So we're building those units and permitting them in less than 6 months. ADUs has been a huge impact for us. I mean, look at our ADU applications. From 2020, we had 1,000, and then we almost tripled that number. We did just have to scale back on the ADUs because the unlimited bonuses and all the rules. We started getting developers putting in projects with 160 ADUs on one parcel. Yeah. Why wouldn't you? There's no parking, there's no diff, and if you can fit it, and there's micro units, so the neighbors didn't really like that, and the council ended up scaling back the program a little bit, but you know, we've really done a lot to supercharge there. We've also done a lot with our zoning to modernize, support jobs, specifically the life sciences industry. It's just huge for San Diego. But these policies didn't just change numbers, they changed lives. And we finally turned the ship. San Diego doubled its housing production from 4,500 homes to 9,000. Vacancy rates rose from crisis levels to something resembling balance. Rents, for the first time in over a decade, fell. We dropped off the list of the 10 most expensive renters markets in the nation. And then this headline, San Diego's newly housed outpaced newly homeless last month. That finally, for the first time, every month, it was, yeah, so yeah, thank you. And that's not policy, that's humanity. So I know I'm out of time. Sorry, this speech, when I did it last time, it was too short, so I tried to go intentionally slow. Like I said, brain's a little slow right now. So Monday morning lessons. Start with people, not zoning, not diagrams. Start with who lives here and what helps make them stay. Big plans that actually permit big changes. You have to have program EIRs so that you don't have to do environmental documents on individual projects. It's the only way to make it go fast. And that way you get the community input during the plan update, not on every project. Incentivize what you need most. I mean, I would tell you to do that, but has anyone heard of SB 79? Yeah, it's just gonna do it for you. So it's done. SB 79 added 375,000 units of new housing capacity on top of the 150,000 that we already created. So obviously LA, larger numbers than that. Mayor Bass really tried to get it to slow down. She did not want, because now we're faced with, you have to put in the infrastructure to support that. You can't just put in a bunch of homes. And so that's really where we, our next goal and our next problem. So allow small to go big with the ADUs and micro units. They're kind of the quiet heroes of gentle infill. And then create the fast lane with real deadlines. And then matching jobs with places. So listen, everything that we do in this job, it is so many rules, 200 new rules a year from the state. I mean, this is crazy. Like, how are we all supposed to keep up with this? The new mandates. Every week, someone's handing you a new puzzle piece. You got to try to figure it out. So just try as hard as you can. Keep some humility. Don't be afraid to ask questions. No one can keep up with this. So the last thing is, you know, we've done our adequate sites inventory in San Diego. We were working to do more, but our bottom line is we can't grow up. Like, we can't grow out like Phoenix. We can't grow out like Houston. So we will grow like San Diego, up, in, near transit, and with affordability, and with the public realm as the non-negotiable. So we began with the oceans and canyons and borders and bases on the edge that shape us. We navigated rules, acronyms, compost piles, high-performing transit stops, and careers that twist in surprising ways. And we arrived at a simple truth that if San Diego can build homes in a canyon-laden, land-constrained, fire-prone city with an ocean view and a dictionary of development acronyms, you can too. So let's go make some waves, policy waves, permit waves, promenade funding waves, and build communities that reflect not just where we live, but who we aspire to be. Thank you.